myself, I mean, the main thing that I told myself, I made sure that I didn't do. Like, I told myself that every single child, as long as they're a child, I'm gonna treat them equally. Because, like, I just felt like there was a lot of uneven stuff happening as I was growing up. And, you know, that's the only thing I really was worried about. And I feel like pretty much I did that. But I just mean, like, as far as me not doing the things I said I would do as a parent, was like telling myself, like, oh, I'm gonna be a good parent. I'm not gonna do this in front of my kids. I won't do. And look, I fucking curse in front of the kids. I smoke. You know what I'm saying? Like, it didn't turn out how I saw it in my mind. You know what I'm saying? And, you know, like, say for instance, like, you're like the first type person who wants to travel. Cause, like, for instance, my mom, she's like real into the church. So, you know, she wanted to make her kids Christians, and, like, you know what I'm saying? Like, just think about that. And, like, look at me. My mom was talking about Christianity to me. I was like, what the fuck? Like when you raise your kids, just think about that. Like, imagine the things you want your kids to do. Like, you're like, oh, you know, let's go. We're gonna travel the world. I want to travel. And they're like, what the fuck am I going to China for? I don't want to see no fucking Chinese. Blah, 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 blah. You're gonna be like, what the hell? You know what I'm saying? Like, but you can't say we're gonna travel and you're gonna do it until you like it. You can't do that. You know what I'm saying? But you imagine them being a certain way, but it's like whatever your kids want to do has a bigger role on than what you said you were gonna do. You know what I'm saying? It's certain, like, for example, like, you could have been your parents could have did certain stuff with you, and you'd be like, oh, when I get I like that parents do that. When I get my kids, I'm gonna do this. But your kid can't mentally handle that. Like, they get too excited or something, like, whatever you just can't do, because your kid is just not, you know, that. Yeah. Then you got people, you know, some people, they say I'm gonna do this and that. They have a kid, the kid's autistic. You know what I'm saying? Like, and they're like, oh my god, like, yeah, like, they wasn't even thinking about that. But then now the whole thing has changed. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's I think being a parent is one of those things that teach you to live in the moment. Like, because in order to really respect your kids, you have to acknowledge the fact that, like, how many times, as in, like, you know, once you're adult, you think, like, how many times did I feel like this is me, you know, like, this is me, this is my personality, this is who I am. Then you change a little bit, like, you like, to the point where, like, your morals completely change, but your personality changed a little bit, but your morals change a lot, and you're a different person. And you're like, even though I thought completely different back then, I really felt like that was me. And that happens over and over and over as you get older. So, like, you gotta remember, like, you cannot base your child off of the things that they did. Like, you know what I'm saying? You, like, if your child stole from you, you can't be like, you're a thief. You know, tell your child, like, you're a thief, you're a thief. That's not how you teach your child to stop stealing. You know what I'm saying? Like, you have to, every moment, you have to acknowledge the fact that they can be a different person every single moment. And that's how you respect your child, as, you know, their growth. You have to acknowledge that. Like, wait, what happened yesterday cannot judge today. Like, you know what I'm saying? Today has to be a brand new day. And that's how you keep your kids from, you know, holding grudges and, you know, being petty. And, you know, you have to acknowledge that. And, like, people who hold shit against their kids. Oh, my kid, that shit, he stole from me, yeah, thief. People who do that, then their parents, when their kids get older, that shit they did when they was a kid, that's how they judge their parents for the rest of their life. Because that's what you did to your kid. You show them to judge them because of the one of those things that they did wrong. Can't do that.
I have to break my habit.
I don't think you necessarily, like, that's the beauty of it. I don't think you necessarily have to break your habits. What you have to do is become conscious. Like, you have to consciously do stuff, because the beauty of mindfulness and being conscious is, like, when your mind is acting stuff out and you just go with it, you're just experiencing it, right? Like, you're just Like like somebody says something and your brain starts going blah 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 blah, like getting mad at them, and you're just experiencing it. Like, and when you talk, it's almost like you're acting out your thoughts. But when you start to become mindful and conscious, you just watch them. Like, your thoughts still happen, but you're looking at them. And the reason why that actually empowers you so much is because you don't have to stop your thoughts. But every time you look at it, you're not your thoughts. Like, you understand? Like, every time you look at it, you're the thing looking at it. Like, so even without saying it to your brain is realizing that. Like, every time you look at your thoughts, your brain is like, it's realizing that it's in a different position than where your thoughts are at. So it gets farther and farther, and it's not like it gets farther, the space just gets bigger. Like, it gets so big that, you know, like if you're looking through something like this small, and there's like a cloud that's in your way, it can cover the whole screen. But when it starts to get wider, it's like that little thing is less important, and that's how it gets. It gets so wide that it's like when it happens, you could see it, that it's happening in like this limitless space. Like, all your angry thoughts are like literally this tiny inside of how big your consciousness is. But it's just like, we're so focused on our thoughts, we're looking at it like this. Like, we're like always like this, looking at our thoughts inside of our head. And so it's like you're just feeling it. Like, all you can see, all you can feel is your thoughts, and you just gotta keep looking at it, keep looking at it, looking at it, looking at it. You don't ever have to stop them, ever. You never have to make your brain stop moving. That's the crazy part. Like, because, you know, you try to stop your ego, and when you stop it, you realize that there's no such thing as the ego. Like, your ego is a manifestation of consciousness. It's like one of consciousness manifestation. So ego was never really there. Like, it's just this imaginary version of yourself in your head. Like, think about that. Think about what an ego is. Like, where does the ego exist? Your ego is literally your mental image of yourself. It's how you feel yourself in your head. But it's not real. It bothers you because you identify with it. You keep thinking it's you. And every time you look at it, it gets farther and farther and farther, until it's so far that when somebody insults your ego, it would be silly, like, for you to get offended because it's so far away. Like, you understand what I'm saying? Like, that's enlightenment. Like your ego is still there. You still see your brain moving, and if you wanted to, you could act it out, but it's just not you anymore. You see how you say you gotta break your habits? You don't have to. You just have to keep watching them. Keep watching your habits. Watching. And you don't know what your soul, what your spirit wants to do. So just keep watching your habits, and your spirit will decide. Like, it'll cut, because eventually it won't be, you know, when you're looking at your habits right now, you're responding to your habits with habits. You understand what I'm saying? Like, your thought about your habits right now is a habitual thought. Like, it's how your habits feel about itself. But every time you back up, you become less of your habit. And so eventually you'll look at your habit, but not from a habitual standpoint. You'll look at it clearly, and you'll see exactly what it is. And it probably won't even bother you that much. Oh, do I have to choose another place?
You know, I just realized that it's not anything about, like, a lot of religions, like the Norse gods, or Greek gods, Egyptian gods. Where did they come from?
I think.
Like, where were they?
I think all.
Greek. They were born from Earth. How is that?
I think each one of the gods. I think all the gods initially, when they started, they were just really strong forces of nature. Like, you know, like the Egyptians, they used, you know, it was the sun. Like the North gods, for instance, they have the cold space, which I forget the name of it, but it's like outer space. And then you have like the flowing lava, which is I forget, it's another god, but I can't remember the name of it. And these are like the gods of the original gods. It was like 3 of them, and they made the tree of life. And the tree of life is pretty much Earth, like, you know what I'm saying? From space, and the heat from the Big Bang created a tree of life, which is Earth. Like, and it literally makes sense. Like, they didn't know science, but think about that. Like years and years ago, they told the exact story of creation, but the strongest the strongest forces in nature in the story were told that like there were people like you got a thunder god, you have the Odin, he's like watching people through the crows everywhere, like, but these are just things that are happening, and it literally explains life, like, you know what I'm saying, it in a metaphor kind of, but they actually all make sense. I actually really like the Norse one, like how they explain things, and how Loki is like, Loki is not actually a god, he's just a trickster, like, but he's so tricky that somehow he tricked the gods into believing that he was a god, and he's like really powerful, and it's really like, there's a point where he also, but he always bites himself in the ass, you know what I'm saying, like somehow they allow him to exist, like even though he's always doing crazy shit and screwy shit, he's always getting locked. They never kill him. Like, it's never like, Loki, you done enough, you're dead. Even in the end, they locked him up. You know what I'm saying? They didn't kill him. It's almost like, they were describing that there's always a necessary evil. Like, it's not, and it's not godly.
Yin and yang.
Yeah, it's like, it's
has to be an equilibrium.
Right. But I like their way of describing Loki, like the fact that he's not, like, they explain him, like, he's not a god. Because people always say, if bad things happen, why did God do it? Why, if God is good, why does he let bad things happen? And, you gotta understand that God, if he created life, and he, like, you couldn't expect him to be like, oh, while I'm gonna create life, poof, and while everything's coming out, he's just grabbing the bad stuff, like, you know what I'm saying? That doesn't even make sense.
I feel like if there was a God and he truly cared about his people that much, and y'all believe that there shouldn't be no evil in the world, there wouldn't be evil. There wouldn't have even been a chance of breeding some type of evil.
Yeah, but the thing is that everyone likes good stuff. You know what I'm saying? Like, everybody likes good stuff. But there's no way for you to know what good is if bad things don't happen. It's just impossible. Like you can't. It would be no way for you to know that was good, because there's nothing that's bad. You understand what I'm saying? Like, it's just, that's what people don't fail to realize. Like, God cannot create good. Like, think about that. There can't even be a word good without a word bad. Like, because what is good? Like, for somebody to explain what good is, they would have to explain. You have to understand what bad is. Like, you know what I'm saying? There's no way for one to exist without the other, and I think that people fail to realize that. So, like, they say, like, oh, God's the other way, but he didn't create that. He didn't create good, he didn't create bad. First of all, if God created the universe, so fire, which obviously would melt any person or anything that's alive to a crisp, is obviously bad. Fire. Is fire good or bad? Like, think about that. Like, you ask the entire world, is fire good or bad? Fire good or bad? Yeah, some people might say that fire keeps you warm, but for the most part, people know that fire burns stuff. You can't touch it. It's hot as hell, and God.
But that's evil right there.
What?
That though it keeps you warm, it can still hurt you.
Yeah, but my thing is, I don't mean heat, like the heat, like I'm talking about fire itself, like fire, like without being able to like, yeah, I know, but what I'm saying is fire itself. If for instance, I'm talking about, you have all these different things to test with fire, right? You have cloth, plastic, you have stuff like that, and you have fire. Every time you put fire in something, it burns it, right? Like, so when you think about fire to the universe, because you're trying to think about it like as a human being. So you think about fire to the universe, and it burns it, like, you know what I'm saying? Fire burns everything it touches. Think about outer space. Outer space is freezing cold. It's a vacuum, like you can't breathe. Your eyes will be sucked out of your head because there's no air. It's nothing, no oxygen. Is no gravity. It's nothing out there. So it's a freezing cold void mixed with burning hot fire. Now God put these two things together, and it created moisture. It created moisture, just with moisture, it was able to create one cell organisms. All of this came from two powerful ass, almost opposite things that would kill. Space would kill you, the cold would kill you, the fire would kill you, but he put it together. And that's what our life is made out of, Shania. Our life is made out of fire and brimstone and freezing cold ice is what made life. And the only reason I say that is because you gotta understand, just think about that. How God must look at good and evil. Think about that. If this is a person, just saying, if God, if he's has a human brain, we're just gonna humor that, thought. So this is a person who's taken ice, freezing cold ice void, fire, burning, scorching. This is hot. This is sun. This is the explosion and put these two things together and made life. So in his mind, when think about this, how do you make diamonds? With pressure. You need pressure, heat, coal, regular dirty coal, inside of enough pressure in the center of the earth is what turns into diamonds, Shania. It's just that we don't see, when we think about good or bad, we think about it in the immediate sense. What is it doing to me physically right now? You know what I'm saying? But there's no such thing as good or bad. It just doesn't exist. That's not how it works. It's all, even the things that we see as bad, all the stuff that you really appreciate about yourself, I guarantee you, no matter what it is, but the stuff about you that you really like, and this is with every person, the stuff about each person that we like about ourselves, think about how that part of you would be if you never went through any of the bad things that you ever felt. Think about that for a second. Because human beings don't like to acknowledge this, and it's not a thought that comes across a lot, but your very personality comes from the bad shit. Think about this, really. Really think about all the bad stuff you went through as a kid, you know what I'm saying? Stuff that your parents may not have noticed, and think about how it formed your personality, Shania. Really think about that, and then think about if all those bad things taken away, you'd be like one of these kids that you talk about in the school, you know what I'm saying? Think about this. Really think about it, Shania. We need bad stuff. We see it as bad, but that's not what it is. You know what I'm saying? It's just, that's just how we look at it. There's no such thing as bad stuff. Bad stuff is actually good stuff. Bad stuff is good nutrients, for depth, for keeping people from being shallow.
What do you need? What do you need?
Oh, what level am I right now?
I gotta filter my hair. Hair, bacteria starts to build up, and it causes this big yummy fungi layer. Yeah, fungi, and it looks like
220. Hell no.
Kind of
160.
I see dandruff. Yeah.
190.
You're gonna
get that thing where you see it's a great day
I used to get the buildup because I would go to sit my hair wet, and I already produce a lot of fungi. That's what I'm gonna go do now. Did I go where you eat?
No, I didn't.
Yeah, when am I not supposed to touch?
I'm just gonna make my plate right now.
Just don't touch the pork. Don't touch the pork that doesn't have barbecue sauce on it. And
I'm just gonna let him make his plate.
No,